What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. I want to ask y'all, when's the last time you played a game that felt like it was made by people who were genuinely passionate about creating something special rather than hitting quarterly revenue targets? And gaming used to be different, man, and I'm not talking about graphics or mechanics. I'm talking about the soul of gaming, the heart of what made us fall in love with video games in the first place. So we're gonna break down exactly what we've lost in modern gaming, why did it happen, and whether there's any hope of getting it back. Because I genuinely believe we're living through one of the most creatively bankrupt periods in gaming history, despite having the most advanced technology we've ever had. And that paradox tells you everything you need to know about what went wrong. So we're gonna start with the elephant in the room. Gaming went from being an art form created by passionate developers to being a product manufactured by corporate committees. I remember when game studios were actually ran by the people who made the games. You had John Carmack at ID Software and the Hauser brothers at Rockstar, and these weren't just executives, they were creators who happened to be running companies. But now most major studios are owned by massive corporations where the people making decisions have never even written a line of code, never designed a level, and never stayed up all night debugging because they cared so much about getting something perfect. They are extremely out of touch, and you can tell. So instead, we now got board meetings where suits look at spreadsheets and say, Call of Duty made $1 billion, so let's make our game more like Call of Duty. Fortnite has Battle Royale, so we need Battle Royale. FIFA makes money with Ultimate Team, so we need loot boxes. And I get it. These companies have shareholders, they have employees to pay, and they need to make money. But somewhere along the way, making money became the only goal instead of one of several goals. And look what happened to studios like BioWare. These are the people who made Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Knights of the Old Republic, games that define entire genres. But EA bought them, and now they're making live service games with microtransactions because that's what the spreadsheet says makes money. And the problem isn't that companies want to make money, it's that they've forgotten you make the most money by creating something people actually love, not by copying what worked for someone else and adding monetization. But we are starting to see a resurgence of big games not coming from major studios and coming from small teams who had a vision and executed it without a committee telling them to add battle royale modes and season passes. But what really kills me is that the talent is still there. The programmers, artists, designers, writers, they're probably more skilled than ever today, but they're being directed by people who see games as content delivery systems for monetization rather than experiences worth creating. And that's why you get games that are technically impressive, but they feel completely soulless or they're unfinished. All the craft, but none of the heart. So this brings me to probably the biggest cancer in modern gaming, which is the live service model. And look, I'm not saying all live service games are bad, but the mentality behind them has ruined everything else. The old model was simple: make a complete game, sell it, move on to the next project, maybe add some DLC. Studios had to make each game good enough to stand on its own because that's how they made their money. But now studios just continue to make incomplete games and promises to fix them later. They design games specifically to keep you playing forever, not because the gameplay is fun, but because they need you engaged with their monetization systems. And every system is designed around retention metrics and player engagement graphs rather than asking, is this actually fun? It's all about daily logins, weekly challenges, season passes, FOMO mechanics. Think about it. When's the last time you played a single player game that respected your time? Most modern games are padded with busy work because longer play times looks better in reports to executives. Instead of tight, focused experiences that tell a story and let you move forward, we get 100-hour games where 70 hours is collecting feathers or doing the same side quest in a slightly different location. And multiplayer? Forget about it. Everything has to be a games as a service now. You can't just hop on with your friends and play a complete game. You need to check what's in the current season, what challenges you're missing, and what limited time event is happening. I miss when you could buy a game, learn it completely, master it, and that mastery meant something. But now the game changes every 3 months, so you never feel like you actually know what you're playing. And y'all already know Call of Duty is the perfect example for this. You used to be able to buy the new Call of Duty, learn the maps, master the weapons, develop strategies with your friends, and each game kind of felt distinct and had its own personality, especially in the golden age. Now it's all connected. Everything carries over between games. There's constant updates changing the meta, new operators to buy, new bundles to purchase. It doesn't feel like you're playing Call of Duty. It feels like you're participating in Call of Duty, the ongoing service. And the craziest part, this model makes games less profitable per player in many cases. but it creates predictable revenue streams that look good to investors. So we all suffer so some CEO can show consistent quarterly growth. But the saddest part of this whole thing is the death of real innovation in AAA gaming. And I was looking at my game library the other day and I realized something depressing. Almost every major game released in the last 5 years fits into the same handful of categories: open world RPG, battle royale, hero shooter, live service looter shooter. Where's the creativity? Where are the games that make you go, I've never played anything like this before? Think about the 2000s. We got Portal, Guitar Hero, Shadow of Colossus, Dead Space, Mirror's Edge, games that created entirely new ways to interact with virtual worlds. What was the last truly innovative AAA game? And I'm talking about something that introduced a completely new concept, not just a refinement of existing ideas. The problem is that innovation is risky, and risk doesn't look good in boardroom presentations. It's much safer to make Assassin's Creed but with Vikings, or Call of Duty but in space, than try something completely new. And here's what these executives do not understand. The biggest successes in gaming history were all innovations. Super Mario Bros., Doom, Street Fighter 2, Tetris, Minecraft. None of these games played it safe. And now we get focus grouped, market research, committee designed games that hit every demographic checkbox and have no personality. They're designed by algorithm instead of intuition. And when something does innovate and succeed, instead of being inspired by why it worked, the industry just copies the surface level mechanics. Minecraft succeeds because of player creativity and emergent gameplay, so everyone adds crafting systems. Dark Souls succeeds because of challenging, thoughtful design, so everyone just makes things artificially difficult. The indie scene is where all the real innovation is happening now. Hades, Outer Wilds, those are just some examples, and these games are doing things that would never get approved in a AAA studio because they cannot be easily categorized and marketed. I mean, look at Schedule 1. That game literally took over Steam Workshop and it was made by one person. And meanwhile, AAA studios spend $200 million making the same open world game for the 15th time, just with different character models in a different setting. It's like the entire industry looked at what made games special, the creativity, the surprise, the sense of discovery, and just decided those were liabilities instead of strengths. Now let's talk about something that really gets me heated. How modern gaming has completely destroyed genuine community building. Gaming used to bring people together, and now everything is just matchmaking and algorithms. And half the time you can't even communicate properly because of overly aggressive chat filters and reporting systems. Bring back Modern Warfare 2 lobbies. I said it here. I might be defending toxic behavior, but we've gone so far in the other direction that games feel sterile and antisocial now. When's the last time you made a genuine friend through gaming? Not just someone you added to your friends list, but someone you actually talked to regularly and played with consistently. The algorithms don't want that. They want to optimize your experience for engagement, not for human connection. They'd rather give you a slightly better KD ratio than let you build relationships with other players. And don't even get me started on how gaming communities interact now. Everything is about competitive ranking, meta optimization, and following whatever the streamers are doing. Used to be you'd discover your own strategies, develop your own playstyles, create your own mini communities around shared interests. Now everyone watches the same YouTube guides and copies the same builds. The creativity and experimentation that used to happen naturally in gaming communities has been replaced by this obsession with efficiency and optimization. Everyone's trying to play the correct way instead of finding their own way. And the platforms themselves encourage this. Everything is about esports now. Even in casual games, there's always a ranked mode, always a meta to follow, and always someone telling you you're playing wrong. I miss when games were social experiments first and competitive experiences second, when the goal was to have fun with other people and not to climb a ladder or optimize your stats. The technology exists to create better communities than ever before, but instead we've used it to create more isolated and algorithm-like experiences that feel less human than what we had 10-15 years ago. So what's the soul of gaming that we've lost? What am I actually talking about when I say modern games feel soulless? And I think it comes down to this. Games used to feel like they were made by people who love games for people who love games. There was this sense of craftsmanship, of attention to detail, and of genuine care for the player experience. You could feel the personality of the developers in their games. You knew a Blizzard game, a Nintendo game, a Valve game just by playing it for 5 minutes. Each studio had its own voice and its own approach to design and its own values. Now most AAA games feel like they could have been made by anyone. They're technically competent, but completely generic. There's no personality, no point of view, no sense that anyone involved actually cared about what they were creating. The soul of gaming was about discovery, surprise, and genuine human connection. It was about developers taking risks to create something special and players being open to new experiences. It was about games that respected your intelligence, that trusted you to figure things out, and it didn't hold your hand through every single interaction. I miss when games used to have secrets that were actually secret, Easter eggs that took years for the community to find, mechanics that weren't explained in tutorials because the developers trusted you to experiment and learn. Now everything is explained, optimized, and data mined within hours of release. The sense of mystery and discovery that made gaming magical has been replaced by wikis and guides and developers who treat players like they're incapable of learning anything on their own. But listen, I don't think the soul of gaming is gone forever. I think it's just moved into the indie developers who are still making games because they have something to say. It's in the modding communities who are creating experiences that big studios won't. It's in the small teams who are willing to take risks and fail rather than play it safe and succeed. The tools to make games are more accessible than ever, and the platforms to distribute them are as well. The audience is bigger and more diverse than it's ever been. And the soul of gaming is still there. It's just not in the places where the most money is being made. And maybe that's always been true. Maybe the real innovation, the real heart, the real creativity has always come from the margins, from people who were making games because they had to, not because it was profitable. So where does this leave us? Are we doomed to an endless cycle of soulless, monetized, committee-designed games? I don't think so. But I think the future of gaming with soul isn't going to come from the places we expect. It's going to come from developers who remember why they fell in love with games in the first place. It's going to come from players who support creative risks instead of just buying whatever has the biggest marketing budget. It's going to come from communities that value creativity and experimentation over optimization and efficiency. The good news is we're already starting to see it happen. And some of these games have more soul in them than most of AAA releases of the last decade combined. They prove that it's still possible to make games that surprise you, that respect you, and feel like they were made by humans for humans. But it's going to require all of us, developers, players, content creators, to actively choose soul over profit, creativity over safety, human connection over algorithm optimization. We need to support these developers who take risks. We need to play games that challenge us instead of just feeding our dopamine receptors. We need to build communities around shared experiences rather than competitive rankings. And technology isn't the problem. We have more powerful tools for creating and sharing games than ever before. The problem is how we're choosing to use these tools. Gaming can get its soul back, but only if we remember what made us fall in love with it in the first place. The wonder, the discovery, the sense that anything was possible when you picked up a controller. That's still there, waiting for us to choose it over the safer, more profitable, more soulless alternatives. If you felt this, man, hit that like button, and if you disagree, let me know why in the comments. I genuinely want to hear different perspectives on this. Subscribe if you want more real talk about gaming, life, and everything in between. I got more content like this coming because I think these conversations matter. Until next time, keep gaming, keep questioning, and keep supporting the games and developers that still give a damn about creating something meaningful. Peace.